In the game of Australian football, the full forward was once the go-to player for conversion through the big sticks. It was their one and only job. And while today it is uncommon for a forward to kick bags of 5, 6 or 7 goals each week, in seasons past, some forwards would amass 6 or 7 goals on a weekly basis. As AFL fans, we are lucky to witness Lance Franklin's 1,000 goal milestone in the 2022 season, a feat only achieved 5 times before in over 160 years. I wanted to look back at the 10 most consistent goal kickers in the history of Australian football, the players that defined goal kicking for future generations to come and made their mark as goal kicking royalty. Jack Moriarty played for Essendon and Fitzroy between 1922 and 1933. He averaged 3.89 goals over 170 games, kicking 662 goals over that time. Moriarty was a 9-time leading goal kicker for Fitzroy and was a relatively small forward by today's standards, standing at 178 centimetres tall and weighing 60 kilograms. However, it was his ability to use speed and anticipation as a high-caliber goal sneak that he was able to be a consistent goal kicker. Moriarty hit double-digit goals twice in his career with a bag of 12 and 10. His consistent goal kicking was elite, only going goalless in 5 games in his 170 games. In his second season, in 1924, Moriarty became the first player to score 80 goals in a season, booting 82 goals from 19 games. He would achieve this 2 more times in 1927 and in his second last season in 1932. Moriarty was a visionary in the forward position, who believed the position was just as important to be played mentally as well as physically. He would try to find ways to escape his opponent to create space to kick goals. Doug Wade is one of only 6 players to have kicked over 1,000 goals in their career. Over 267 games, Wade averaged 4 goals per game for Geelong and North Melbourne. In a career that lasted 15 years, Wade was the leading goal kicker for 14 seasons, with injury affecting the honour in 1965, and Coleman medalist 4 times in an era that saw elite forwards such as Alex Jesaulenko, Peter Hudson and Peter McKenna. Wade hit the century in 2 seasons, booting 127 goals for Geelong in 1969 and 103 with North Melbourne in 1974. He is also a member of the Geelong Team of the Century as full forward. In 267 games, Wade only went goalless 8 times. Gary Ablett Senior is arguably one of the most prolific players in Australian football history, also in the 1,000 goal club, with 1,031 goals over 248 games, averaging 4.2 goals across his career. Ablett began his career at Hawthorn in 1982, playing 6 games for the Hawks. However, struggling to assimilate to the city life in Melbourne, Ablett decided to part ways with Hawthorn, and it wasn't until 1984 that Ablett was transferred to Geelong, where he kicked 33 goals from 15 games and earned the Geelong Football Club Best and Fairest Award in his first year. From then on, Ablett settled in at the half-forward flank, kicking 82 goals in his second season with the Cats and becoming the go-to forward. With explosive pace, the ability to take spectacular marks and elite kicking on both feet, Ablett was the perennial athlete of the 80s and 90s, although he was notorious for being a lackadaisical trainer. It was by his raw talent that he was able to dominate his opponents and be a consistent goal kicker throughout his career. Ablett was never able to achieve the ultimate glory of AFL Premiership, however, with his best performance being 9 goals in the 1989 Grand Final that earned him the Norm Smith. With the second most goals scored in VFL AFL history, Gordon Coventry's 1,299 goals over 17 seasons set the standard for future forwards and goal machines and was a record not able to be broken for 62 years. Coventry achieved 100 goals on 4 occasions in his career. He was a goal-kicking machine and the go-to forward for Collingwood, having kicked 10 goals or more on 11 occasions, with his highest ever being 17 goals of Collingwood's 25 goals against Fitzroy in a 1930 home and away game. By the end of his career, Coventry was the first AFL player to have played 300 games. Being the leading goal kicker in 16 of those 17 seasons, he was part of the only four-peat premiership between 1927 and 1930, kicking a total of 20 goals in the premiership wins combined and 6 times competition leading goal kicker and part of the Collingwood Team of the Century. He was the most decorated Australian footballer for the time. Over 158 games for South Melbourne, Bob Pratt averaged 4.31 goals per game, kicking 681 goals over his career. Referred to as arguably the greatest full forward in AFL history, Pratt was known for his high-flying and spectacular diving marks. In his 11 seasons for the Bloods, Pratt achieved 3 consecutive years of kicking 100 goals or more, from 1933 to 1935. Pratt kicked 150 goals in the 1934 season, being the most goals ever kicked by an Australian footballer, and a record that may never again be beaten. Pratt later moved to Coburg Football Club at the VAFA, where he kicked 263 goals in 40 games, an average of 6.5 goals per game. Looking at his numbers, Pratt could have kicked over 1,000 goals in his career, but this never eventuated as injuries had cut short his 1937 and 1938 seasons. His move to Coburg was due to rules not allowing him to play for 3 years, as Pratt wanted to move to Carlton. In the 1940 season, he kicked 183 goals with a 22-goal performance against Sandringham. Not many AFL full forwards could release a pop single and kick a bag of 100 goals, but Peter McKenna did just that. Playing 191 games between 1965 and 1977, McKenna kicked 874 goals for Collingwood and Carlton. In 1970, McKenna kicked 143 goals, but was not the leading goal scorer for that year. He did, however, win the Coleman medal back-to-back in 1972 and 1973, with efforts of 130 goals and 86 goals respectively. McKenna was the most popular footballer during the time, appearing on TV and even releasing his own single in 1971, which was a season he also kicked 134 goals in. Although McKenna never surpassed 1,000 goals at the VFL level, he accumulated 1,213 goals over stints at the VFA. Across 269 games, the Chief, Jason Dunstall, kicked 1,254 goals, averaging 4.7 goals per game. Despite his bulky build, Dunstall was quick off the mark and usually able to get away from his defending opponent to take a mark, usually on the chest. A decorated career saw the third most goals kicked in AFL history. A 3-time Coleman medalist, 4-time premiership player, 4-time All-Australian, 4-time club best and fairest, and finishing in the top 3 in Brownlow counting in 4 seasons, which is not common for a key position player. Such a resume displays why many dub Dunstall as the greatest player to come out of Queensland. Dunstall kicked double-digit goals 16 times in his career. He kicked 100 or more goals in 6 seasons. The number 1 all-time goal kicker kicked 1,360 goals in 281 games, with an average of 4.8 goals per game for St Kilda and Sydney.
There's only one Tony Lockett! One Tony Lockett!
Plugger holds the record of most goals kicked for St Kilda with 898 and is the 5th highest goal kicker for the Swans with 462 in only 98 games. Although he was never able to win a premiership in his career, Lockett's personal resume was something that may never be seen again in AFL history from a full forward. With 5 All-Australian honours, 4 Coleman medals, 3 best and fairest, Team of the Century for both Sydney and St Kilda, as well as a Brownlow medal in 1987 for being judged the best player in the league, an award known to be favoured and awarded to midfielders. He was the first full forward to win the award, kicking 100 goals or more in 6 different seasons. Lockett could have easily kicked more had he been healthier, as he played less than 12 games in 8 of his 18 seasons. Despite this, his career record of 1,360 goals will never be broken. The man who bestows the honour of being named after the season's leading goal kicker averaged 5.5 goals over just 98 games for Essendon, where he kicked 537 goals. Coleman only played 6 seasons, but achieved what many could not in longer careers. A 2-time premiership player, 5-time leading goal kicker for the whole competition, and the leading goal kicker for Essendon in each of his seasons in his career. Coleman has a rightful place as full forward in the AFL team of the century. Coleman was a football prodigy, having played under 18 football for Moonee Ponds at the age of 12. He then moved to Hastings in the Mornington Peninsula, where he kicked 296 goals in 37 games. He kicked 23 goals in 1948 against Sorrento. He was eventually picked up by Essendon, although they had scouted him in his early years. In his first game, he kicked 12 goals, a record that has never been beaten to this day. After 6 seasons, Coleman kicked 100 plus goals 3 times, as well as 100 in his first season. He went goalless once in his career. Coleman's career was cut unexpectedly short when he dislocated his knee, and he never played again. Despite playing 6 seasons, the impact Coleman made in a post-war era of football echoes in football history, and will be a part of the identity of the game forever. Having kicked the 18th most goals in AFL history, while having played the 1,620th most games in the history of the game, Peter Hudson is statistically the most consistent full forward ever, having averaged 5.6 goals in his career. Hudson played in an era of big-name full forwards, such as Doug Wade and Peter McKenna. He is the only other player next to Bob Pratt to have kicked 150 goals in a season, which he achieved in 1971, where he also won his only premiership for Hawthorn. Hudson was known for obtaining as much possession of the football through his strength, pace, and elite marking. He missed 3 consecutive seasons between 1972 and 1974, when he experienced consistent knee injuries. Hudson then moved back to Tasmania, where he played for Glenorchy in 1975 and 76, before returning to Hawthorn in 1977 and kicking 110 goals in that season. Hudson achieved 100 goals 5 times in his career. When all was said and done, Hudson played 288 professional games in Victoria and Tasmania, tallying a total of 1,687 goals, as well as 288 goals in 51 state representative honours, which would make him the deadliest man with a football.